As a value stream lead for home loans, my main concern is customer experience throughout the home loan process. I know that the sooner we can take a credit decision on their application, the lower the chances applicants drop out and bank with a competitor. So KPIs such as on-time performance and time to yes are the most important ones for me. For example, here in this dashboard by Apromore, I can see that it takes about 2.3 weeks to handle a loan application beginning to end, and that my on-time performance at 10 days is actually not met. Only 17.6% of loan applications complete within 10 days. I also like to keep an eye on operating cost. I see, for example, we're spending about 15,000 euros on average to originate a loan. Of course, I'm also equally concerned about compliance, especially in highly regulated verticals like banking. For example, I have controls related to all critical operations such as credit checking and settlement approval. One that is particularly important to me is to make sure that full credit history check is performed before taking a credit decision. Actually, here I can see that about 8% of loan applications make it through to payment without running a full credit history check. That's definitely a regulatory compliance issue. I also like looking at the volume of loan applications per month. That's a performance trend. The loan applications divided by customer segment, the distribution by broker or by channel. This dashboard in Apromore really offers all I need in a single place. I can set this as my landing page, so I will see this anytime I single sign on into Apromore. It's really just a URL away. I can create these dashboards even myself. I don't need a process analyst for that, as Apromore is a completely no-code environment. For example, let me quickly create a new tab where I add a widget to show the loan applications by purpose, or add a couple of new KPIs. Doing that is really very simple. I can add any type of widget simply from this drop-down menu. For example, a chart. I pick the log that I want, my loan origination one, and add a chart that shows the distribution of loan applications by purpose. Select purpose. There you go. I can also add a couple of KPIs. Let me add one about I can browse all the KPIs available here. My time to decision one, which as we know we are not meeting, and another one, maybe this time we are luckier, another KPI, and this time let me pick the one on the SLA for approve offer. Okay, this one is actually met. Of course, you can also customize the design of these KPIs whichever you want. And once your dashboard is available, you can start interacting with that and drilling down. The dashboard is also linked to notifications. And I just got a notification that I'm off mark with my on-time performance. I need to see what's going on. Let me look at the process flow. Once in the process discovered module, I can see what's really going on. My data covers about 7.5 months worth of loan applications from September 2022 till end of April 2023. I can see that it takes about 2.3 weeks on average and costs me 15,000 euros to run a loan application from beginning to closing. I see I have received 5,600 loan applications in this period, and they follow about 2,500 different decision pathways. I can explode the arcs to see all the paths, and that's of course complex. But what's the main path? I can actually ask Apromore to show me the backbone, that is the most common sequence of activities from beginning to end. Let me bring the arcs back to 10% and ask Apromore to calculate the backbone. Here I see this sequence right in the center of my screen is the most common pathway. I can see all the tasks that are performed in this pathway. So now, if I explode the arcs back to 100% and I set the frequency to relative percentage point, I can see really all the exceptions at the top and at the bottom of my backbone with their relative frequency. For example, I amend the documentation in about 5% of the cases, and I cancel an offer in about 14% of the cases. Let me reset the view. And now let me change the overlay to duration so I can actually see bottleneck activities and long waiting times. I see a couple of potential issues here. A resource capacity bottleneck at an analyst offer. You see that the waiting times leading into this activity are quite long, signaling that most likely the role behind this activity is overutilized. And on the other hand, I see an activity bottleneck at approve offer, which takes on average 2 days to complete. I can also replay the data behind this process on my process map, so I can see really the build-up of bottlenecks over time. For example, here I can see that I really have a bottleneck around this activity analyze offer. All the loan applications really clog up at the doorstep of this activity. And likewise, I have another bottleneck before getting into approve offer, and also that activity itself is quite slow. These are good insights, as these 2 friction points could indeed be the reason why I don't meet my 10-day SLA on case duration. But where do I start? I could ask my process analyst to start delving into these 2 activities and start assessing their impact using filters. And indeed, Apromore has a variety of filters, which, like anything else in Apromore, it's all completely no code. So it's really not a big deal to use these filters. However, I want to take a shortcut. I want to ask my friend, Apromore's copilot, some straight questions to understand where my key friction points are, and especially how they impact on my 10 days SLA on my on-time performance. Apromore's Copilot is a simple conversational interface to ask really all sorts of questions related to my process. From discovery questions such as where are my bottlenecks, through to analysis, understanding their impact, comparing cohorts like, for example, loans that originate from different channels, looking into KPIs and root causes for their violations, and even simulating what-if scenarios. For example, let me ask, where are the key bottlenecks on this process and how they impact on my 10-day SLA on average case duration? Okay, I see that the SLA is exceeded by 6 days. Among the key activity bottlenecks, indeed, I have approve offer, which takes about 2 days on average. But then I also have inform customer and gather feedback there. And then I have critical transition delays, indeed those around analyze offer, as we knew. So here I get a summary of the process issues and potential ideas for improvement. Let me continue by delving now into approve offer. How many users perform approve offer? What's their role? Right, is the loan manager. And I have 26 people performing this activity with this role. The utilization is indeed very high, 94%. Definitely loans manager is an overutilized resource, and they might be behind this activity bottleneck. I can also delve into this task by using perspectives. By switching perspective, I can see the same process from multiple viewpoints. For example, I can see all the roles involved in this process, such as my loans manager. It's the slowest. Banker, loans officer, banking manager, and so on. I can look at the systems involved. For example, I can see that I have SMS loan manager as my core banking system, Easy Lodge to lodge applications, and Salesforce, and it seems most of the time is indeed spent in my Salesforce. I can even look at the resources, but I would expect to have a very large number of users. I guess we can come back to this later, but I can see even names and surnames of the users involved in each activity, and of course I can fully anonymize that. Let me get back to my activity perspective. I can use this perspective now in combination with filters. Using a simple shortcut, Ctrl, Alt and right click, I will focus only on this activity by applying a so-called event filter, so that isolating this activity I can switch perspective to see the face of the process, the system, or the roles behind this activity. Let's look at the phase or sub-process. So this is happening in Manage Approval. The system where I'm performing this is indeed Salesforce, and the role is, no surprise, Loans Manager. I can now also look at the users with role Loans Manager, of which I have 90, and maybe I can select the top 10% slowest users. There they are. I see, for example, that a person like Tracy Chavez takes over 3 days to complete this approve offer activity. Okay, let me reset everything, remove the filters as well, and get back to the activity perspective. Let me continue now by testing some what-if scenarios. If I support my loan manager by automating approve offer 20%, let's say, of the times, do I now meet my 10-day SLA on average case duration? So now I want to see whether by applying some automation on this approve offer activity, I could have a material impact on my 10-day SLA on case duration, which, as we see on average, it's around 2.3 weeks, so definitely over 10 days. Okay, here is saying that if I apply 20% automation, so if I automate this activity with a 20% automation rate, I would drop the average case duration down to 1 week with an uplift of nearly 56%. So the SLA would actually be met. And most importantly, the utilization of Loans Manager would drop from 94 down to 79%, definitely providing more capacity for other tasks to be performed. This automation helps reduce workload while maintaining process efficiency. Great summary. Here is where Apromore builds a what-if scenario based on a prompt. Of course, if I wish, I could do this manually, but I'm a manager of home loans. I do not have time for that. Apromore will run the what-if scenario for me by simulating it and bringing me back the results directly in the chat. I see I can definitely make it, so this is a very good starting point, and I can keep going to assess now changes, for example, to the context in which my process operates. For example, I could ask, what if demand increased by 15%? How would this impact on my average case duration and cost? Because as you can see, Apromore also provides a measurement of the cost for this process. I even have a dedicated overlay where I can, for example, look at the total rework cost or the average cost per activity. And here are my results. I can see that my average case duration would blow up from 2.3 weeks up to 4.24 weeks, plus 86%. I would also have an impact on various resources utilization. But let's see if I can bring that back on track by automating again approve offer for 20% of the time. So do I drop my average case duration below 10 days if demand increases by 15% and I automate approve offer 20% of the times? And so the answer is yes, I would achieve an average case duration below 10 days with these changes. So in this quick demo, I showed you how I can make the most out of Apromore as the value stream lead for home loans. Of course, if I were an analyst, I would have a different experience. So instead of landing on a dashboard, I would actually land on a folder structure, and here I could analyze all my assets, for example, all related to my loan origination process. I could even navigate a process architecture and associate risks, controls, obligations with my process, automatically test controls, set notifications, and so on. There's really a lot you can achieve with Apromore, and it's all at your fingertips with a completely no-code environment that brings together mining, modeling, simulation, monitoring, and compliance checking all in a single integrated platform.